Love that band, the Rainmakers, and that's how I felt all week. So, starting yesterday, I went to hell and decided to finish the hell chapter by Tuesday night, this Tuesday night, so that I can whack the UFOs chapter together by Thursday, and then the epistles and appendix, and then I'll have 3 weeks to finish the rewrites and touch-ups of the other 400 pages that will take them back down to 200 pages. Yes, and actually, I got most of that hell chapter done since yesterday, so guess what you're stuck with, friends? Now, I'm not going to read the whole night. I did manage to find some remarkably apropos bits of tape without even looking too hard. Thanks, Will, for helping. But let us read here, and this is perfect time to read this particular material, because a lot of it was originally written for the spoken word preacher material, and has not yet been loftyized, shall we say. It has not been turned into the written SubGenius form, whereby you use a thesaurus and add big words and remove apostrophes. But it is chapter 9, Heaven and Hell, the realms of death and the before life, and hints on living like there's no tomorrow. This, by the way, folks, is based on extrapolations and direct revelations from the incomplete Dobbs Inferno manuscript, translated from the original tongue of the dead, dictated by the tormented earthbound lower half of the spirit of J.R. Bob Dobbs through Trance Medium X. The music, by the way, in the background right now is the great Reverend Dr. J. Condom on his Zombo Fropland album, or Music to Pee By. I can't remember what the exact title of it is. It's in your catalog, okay? And of course, every chapter we start off with quotes, lofty type quotes and apropos things that and there's always too many of them. We'll have to cut most of these. In fact, a lot of what you'll be hearing will be changed by the time it comes out in fall '94. Yes, the fall '94 catalog. That's right, Virgil, said Dobbs, loosening his collar. It is getting rather hot in here. And as Dr. Kataydin Legume, the evil Dr. Legume, said, the best way to buy your way into heaven let me take two. The best thing to do is buy your way into heaven using somebody else's soul, and buy your way out using somebody else's soul, and keep your own in your pocket at all times. Yes. And as the great Reverend Sheldon DeWare said, the difference between heaven and hell is which end of the pitchfork you're on. Yeah, yep. And as Bob said in his diary at age 15, I choose to believe in an afterlife only because it is too horrible to believe that such a cool stud as myself could be allowed to disappear from the universe. And he also said, and this line was printing out just when my daughter's guest was looking at the computer. Bob said, I walked into hell the minute I stepped out of my ma's, maw, we'll just say maw, I guess. To hell and back, death, rebirth, and the before life. It could happen anytime, friend, anytime. Just walking in the garden, you could suddenly die. A branch might crack overhead and fall straight down, tip first, spearing the top of your head exactly, all the way down into your rib cage and destroying so much of your brain so suddenly that you'd never know what hit you. You'd think you were still walking down that trail, and you'd hear a noise and turn and see your friend crying over your own impaled body. And that's when you'd realize that you were a ghost. Or a meteor could plunge from space and crush you. Now! Right now! Would you be ready? Would you be ready, my friend, if it happened the instant you finish hearing this sentence? Oh, but don't worry about the death of the body. Leaving the meat shell is roughly the equivalent of taking off your shoes. But you're not supposed to really know that. From the grand evolutionary point of view, it would greatly impede the survival of the species if we all knew we could just jump off a bridge and suddenly be beautiful, immortal souls, free of debt, in a wonderful heaven of telepathy and love and infinite joy. And yet we've all heard stories from people who were clinically dead and had these near-death, out-of-the-body experiences just before they were resuscitated on a hospital table. And in most cases, they entered a tunnel of light leading to the shades of their deceased loved ones and a great light of love at the center of the universe. A few felt the flames of hell licking at them. Now, both of these lovely afterlives glimpsed during temporary death are real, but are designed only for those who are already fated to return to life and report back. Oh, by the way, this footnote here says that another misleading phenomenon used to prove an afterlife are the so-called phone calls from the dead and spirit voices at seances. And the deal is that the dead are allowed to make one telephone call, and only one, after they pass through the gates of the hereafter. But anyway, those particular kinds of afterlives that people come back from the dead having glimpsed, those are merely a ruse, a red herring, a hallucination, programmed into our genetic structure to throw us off the scent. A Wotan-implanted mental movie projector is triggered at the time of death to show this racial acid trip, so that the human race will always be hearing fairly plausible stories suggesting some sort of god and devil. But it's strictly for propaganda purposes. It's not even put there as a kindness. It's as a roller coaster ride, as a reward after all the tedious rigmarole of living and the usual pain of dying. What you find out too late, just as you're nearing that white light, is that it is really the headlights of an etheric Mack truck bearing down on you at 90 miles an hour. And it's the last second before the ultra-dimensional truck hits you that makes the gods laugh the hardest, the minute you suddenly realize that you've been tricked and are about to be killed again. And that's what happens if you aren't resurrected pretty quick. Each time that truck smashes you, you're reborn with amnesia, again floating towards that bright oncoming light. And every time you end up remembering what that light really is, an instant too late. Why this cruel, elaborate trick on poor, pathetic dead folks? It's because God isn't trying to create something. He's trying to recreate nothing. Even God doesn't know where everything came from or how to get rid of it. Oh, just kidding. Friends, Bob wouldn't let God do that to you. In reality, every time you fully die, you get to go from one universe to another. Let me find some lovely reincarnation type music. There. Yes, you go from one universe to another. They start you off, however, in the before life, which is like eternal paradise, to kind of get you off on the right foot. And then all of a sudden you lose your memory and are born of woman onto this earthly plane. Then when you get old and die here, you pass on to one of the etheric universes next door. Bob once spoke of driving past the slag heaps of Midlothian, Texas, where the conspiracy melts down the fossilized metal skeletons of old cars to make into new ones, thence themselves to die and be smelted down again. He said that this is exactly how we endlessly experience, the eternal conveyor belt of karma, the great wheelbarrow of humiliation that we call existence. As Bob said in Transmission 47, "In my Father's midway are many bumper car rides." And the before life for subgeniuses is like a huge carnival. You'll end up on many rides for fleeting eternities. One may be the roller coaster of alternating fear and joy. The next might be the tunnel of love. Hell is the ultimate spook house. Indeed, There are so many multiple death realities that there's even one where you're really dead and nothing happens and you don't exist. But most people think of life and death as only two states of being. The only two states of being. Actually, they are very small straws in a very large haystack. This haystack of death lives isn't an infinite one, though. There is a judgment day or splice in time that serves as both the beginning and end of a big repeating loop of all cause and effect. And beyond all these lives and alternate universes, the whole of creation is actually a vast pipe balanced on the back of a huge cosmic horned toad, and beneath that an all-encompassing fiddler crab. Nothing itself does not exist after that. But there's enough afterlives, however, that you'll get the afterlife that you really want. That's why so many preachers can't quit talking about hell. They try to get you all mixed up between heaven and hell.
The record reveals that many times the enemy of your soul has sorely tempted you, my child, giving you every opportunity to quit, had you desire to do so. But because you have been faithful in prayer, faithful in the reading of the Word, and because you have not forsaken the house of God, you have overcome the tempter and gained the crown of eternal life. For this I say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Enter thou into the joys of thy Lord.
Praise God, I made it. I finally made it. Did you hear? I finally made it. Glory to God. Oh, I thank you, Lord, for thy mercy. I thank you, Lord. Blessed be thy name. Oh, I love you, Jesus. I thank you, Lord. Hallelujah. Glory to God. I made it. I made it. Hallelujah. Praise God. Thank you, Lord. Hallelujah.
The backslider will be there in that judgment. Though Christianity for centuries has operated on the thought that men could walk in and out with God, that they could turn back to the world and back to their sins, then come back to God without any loss, has led many to speculate in the most frightening way. But the Bible said, if the righteous man turn from his righteousness, then all of his righteousness shall be forgotten. Yes, sir. The backslider will be there in the judgment.
Call the next defendant. Dana Dean to the bar. Dana Dean, the record shows that in the year of your Lord, 1959, you received the glorious experience of salvation.
Almighty God, King of kings and Lord of lords, indeed it was a glorious experience.
The record goes on to reveal that for many years you were a faithful servant, performing your duties well. Because of your faithfulness in witnessing, many were brought into the glorious light of the gospel, and many souls were added to the kingdom. Because of your giving, my preachers were able to circle the globe with the message of salvation.
Sir, I gave back only part of that which was given unto me.
Were the records to stop here, my son, it would indeed be a wonderful story. But these faithful records are very careful to point out the darkest day in your life. It is stated here that in the year of your Lord, 1973, you turned your back upon your God and once more began to walk in your own way.
But, sir, I've come back. I've come back, sir. I'm closer now than I've ever been before. I've come back, sir. My God, I've come back.
Yes. The record shows that in the fourth watch of your life, you returned to the fold. But what an awful price you must pay for your foolishness. Because you turned back, you have lost your reward. You shall enter heaven as a servant without a single soul to your credit.
It's unfair. It's so unfair. I've worked so hard for the kingdom all these years. It's unfair that I should lose all my credits now. Oh, my.
You knew all of this before you backslid. Show him his record. January 3rd, 1973.
But when the righteous turneth away from his righteousness, and committeth iniquity, and doeth according to all the abominations that the wicked man doeth, shall he live? All his righteousness that he hath done shall not be mentioned. In his trespass that he hath trespassed, and in his sin that he hath sinned, in them shall he die. This simply means that if you backslide and turn away from God, all the rewards that you've accumulated shall be lost.
I just don't understand how this could happen to me.
August 21st, 1973.
You mean you aren't going to church again today?
Baby, don't bother me. You know this is my only day off. I don't have to live in church to be saved.
Dana, if you aren't careful, you're going to miss out with the Lord completely.
I ain't going to church. It's my birthday, honey.
My son, you heard the word. You were warned. Were you so foolish as you think you could outwit the law of God? You have returned and have been saved as by fire. But the glory and the splendor that could have been yours throughout the ceaseless ages of eternity is an awful price to pay.
Oh, my, what a fool. Oh, to think that I could turn my back on God and make it on my own. My God, what a fool I've been. How foolish can a person be? Sir, I hope you haven't been the fool I've been. My God, what a fool, what a fool.
Yes, friends, the SubGenius shall be at the judgment. Yes, yes, yes. And, you know, it's sad. By the way, so far we've just been talking about the Christian hell and heaven. And we're going to be on that for a while, but you graduate to the SubGenius hell and then to the SubGenius heaven. We ain't written that part yet. But, we're told by people that are sometimes in tears. This happens when I'm talking about Bob on somebody else's talk show. Their voices will be cracking with emotion, and they'll be saying, "You're going to go to hell if you keep up this SubGenius church business." And it's because they've been shaken up pretty bad, possibly for the first time, by we who dare to laugh at the great, bearded, all-judging, all-non-forgiving unlaughable. The great unlaughable, my friends. And the Christian hell does exist, and it is the lowest rung of the ladder of the four lives. They aren't lying about that. What they don't tell you is that only Christians go there. It's a rare SubGenius that ends up in the Christian hell. The hell law, my friend, states that hell is reserved for those who believe in it. And the lowest level is for those who think that if they don't believe in it, they'll go there. Hell is God's revenge on those who insulted his intelligence, those vain and stupid enough to think God is as simple-minded and vengeful as they are. God built hell only for Christians, Muslims, and others who believe in a devil. The devil's only job, actually, is to pester them, to milk out every drop of human faith and credence. Satan, or Ahriman, or whatever, is a very minor deity compared to Jehovah One, and has been bested in sexual prowess, if not in supernatural powers or demonic dominion, by none less than Bob himself. To any SubGenius dumb enough to take him seriously, the devil is at worst a figure of negative slack. Satan does run hell, and it's a very busy place these days, but as far as affecting earthly life, Satan's responsibilities cover only Middle Eastern-based religions. Jehovah One assigned the devil to create something that would really be hell on earth, so he came up with the idea of Christianity, which he then followed up with Islam. Jehovah One said to Satan, "We'll just let your hell on earth run randomly so the dupes will suffer and generate more pain for each other, and in the end it won't matter whether they were good or bad in life. We'll just divvy up the souls 50-50. How's that?" Friends, you might say that Christians are to blame for Satanism. If it weren't for Christians telling each other there's a devil, nobody would believe in him. And besides, for every satanic, ritualistic killing, 100 babies are killed spur of the moment by fanatic Christian nut parents who thought the kid was crying because it was possessed by Satan. The only reason anybody serves Satan is because some Christian told them there was a Satan there to serve. How about that? However, there are 8 circles in the Christian hell. Dante's Inferno, however, is a hopelessly outdated work. Hell is constantly being upgraded in pain configurations to compensate for the ever-degenerating quality of life here on Earth. The types of sins required to damn a Christian to these varying levels of torment are, however, surprisingly minor. Here are some examples in ascending order of guiltiness and punishment. The first level, the easiest level of hell, is for instance, for people who said damn or gah. The second level is for those who might have felt lust in their hearts at one time. The third level, for people who, for instance, forgot to say sir or ma'am. Level 4 is for people who can't quote me John 6:14 and don't know what brand Jesus Christ smoked. Level number 5 is for people who opened their eyes during prayers in church. And level 6 is for that guy that ripped you off. Level 7 for murderers and rapists. And level 8 is reserved for members of, well, not members, for SubGeniuses who neglected to spend that $30 membership.
And not liberated.
I think I am.
Meditate as follows.
Okay.
The sexual activities,
I like that.
the manipulation of machinery, the mocking laughter, dashing sounds, and terrifying apparitions. Indeed, all phenomena are in their nature illusions.
They look real to me.
However they may appear,
You mean like a dream?
in truth they are unreal and fake.
They won't stay?
They are like dreams and apparitions,
mean they-
non-permanent, non-fixed.
They'll go away?
What advantage is there in being attached to them
Well, I'm scared.
or being afraid of them?
I don't know.
All these hallucinations of the mind,
I like hallucinations.
the mind itself does not exist.
Oh, no?
Therefore, why should they?
Well, they look real.
Only through taking these illusions for real will you wander around in this confused existence.
Well, what are they?
All these are like dreams,
Yeah?
like echoes,
Echoes,
like
echoes.
cities of clouds,
Wow.
like mirages,
Hmm.
like mirrored forms,
What the?
like phantasmagoria.
Is that what that is?
The moon seen in water,
What should I do?
not real even for a moment.
Yeah?
By holding one pointedly to that train of thought,
Okay.
the belief that they are real are dissipated,
All right.
and liberation is attained.
What? Fourth method. Meditation on the void.
All substances are part of my own consciousness.
What?
This consciousness is vacuous, unborn, and unceasing.
What?
Part of my own consciousness. This consciousness is vacuous, unborn, and
Hey,
unceasing.
I think I heard this.
All substances are part of my own consciousness. This consciousness is vacuous,
Hey,
unborn, and
I
unceasing.
did hear this.
Thus meditating,
Uh,
allow the mind to rest in the like the pouring of water into water.
oh, I got a tinkle.
The mind should be allowed its own ease. In its natural, unmodified condition,
Yeah?
clear and vibrant,
Well, what should I do?
by maintaining this relaxed, uncreated state of mind,
Yeah?
rebirth into routine game reality is sure.
Hey,
Meditate on this until you are certainly free.
I want to be free. I got to be me.
The funky bardos. Who else could it be but those wacky, funky bardos? And yes, you have to be careful about re-entry into the regular, normal, mundane Earth plane, because there's another level of hell called West Heck, which we will tell you about on side 2 of show in just one tape flipping moment, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Yes, my friends, there is a particularly insidious section of hell called West. Milo Drummond is an expert on West Heck. Many lost souls are in heck without knowing it. It's a polite hell, a genteel hell. They don't even tell you you're in heck. You could easily be living in heck on Earth and think it was perfectly normal. You still have to work a horrible day job, to spend your whole eternity working a dull, pointless job that doesn't mean a damn thing except money to pay for slightly less pain. There's a special section of hell for each earthly profession in which one might fail, including yours. The only difference is that this time it's eternal torment. And you're not trying to paid demons. Only after toiling for a week that lasts 1,000 years do you earn the right to relax and go out on a date. But then you're faced with sex in hell, which is a living nightmare. Because in hell, you're judged by your looks. If your looks don't conform to Miss Hell foldout of 1996, well, you're going to have trouble getting dates. And in hell, you get old, you age, your skin sags as the years go by, and you're compelled to wear elaborate hairdos and makeup. And on top of that, the demons make such a big deal out of sex, both pro and con, and half the time you're so uptight about doing everything correctly, can't get your rocks off. You go to all that trouble for kind of halfway climax. Wouldn't you hate to live in a world like that? Wouldn't you do anything to get to heaven, even kill yourself? But see, that's the difference. In hell, you don't know if there's an afterlife, so you don't dare kill yourself. In heaven, you know for sure that you're already in it, so you don't have to kill yourself. Now, there is a hell you can retire from, but there's also one where they tell you you'll retire at age 50, but you always get killed there just before your 50th birthday and end up wading even deeper into the lake of fire. Oh, you'll find out. You're going to find out, friend. There ain't no water down there. There ain't no water down there. You can't get a drink, and you can't put out that fire. There's never quite enough church air to breathe. Oh, you take that church air for granted now. You may not even know about it. But wait till it's gone, little Bobby. You can never win. It's like playing against a computer. It can't lose. It can't lose. In fact, in one hell, in the tick hell, you're like a little character in a video game, forced to eternally machine gun the endless stream of ticks crawling out at you from behind cactuses in a blistering desert. And when the ticks die, they excrete a cactus and another tick. Well, you can kill lots of ticks. Yeah, you can score real high. You can keep earning lifetimes. But sooner or later, they're going to get you. They creep up on you. They creep up on you, boy. It's just like here on Earth. And to top it off, there is reincarnation. There is reincarnation, friends. Once you're in hell, oh yeah, you'll have plenty of lives in hell.
Facts about the before life. SubGenius rebirth. You were, will be there. Intense scrutiny of the GNU Gnarnesis, or the SubGenius Book of the Living Dead, has been underway for the past 12 years. Church doctors in the Dobbstown vaults have nearly completed their translation of this most holy book in the Yeti Vita trilogy. These self-same doctors inform us that many passages of this work are directly attributable to the brave and enlightened Atlanteans. Longtime subscribers to the Stark Fist will recall our last report on this uber-sacred tomb tome about 6 years ago, number 22, volume 17, when we published Partying After Death by Dr. Siddhartha Catharsis. As you will know, SubGenius souls, or mental essences, are volatile, brightly colored, and usually very fast when they care to be. They go where they want and are hard for others to control. Souls of normals, however, are bland-looking, pill-like beings. Although in life, subs and norms are almost indistinguishable, after death, this is a hard mistake to make. When a SubGenius dies, the nantessence bursts from its meat prison. Its massless seed careens in a pan-galactic journey, lasting but a moment of our time. It usually returns once to make sure it's really dead before moving on to the before life. Due to a 10,000-year disinformation campaign by the con, a jaded stereotype of heaven and hell is being pushed by the false churches. In fact, there's little difference between the two. SubGenius often commute between heaven and hell. Interestingly, heaven is hotter than hell. The 7 suns which heat heaven make it many times hotter than the molten gaseous temperature thresholds of brimstone. When a SubGenius decides to live again, she is not alone. Each SubGenius has a mental life twin on the media plane. This is a revelation of the power of the SubGenius. SubGenius spiritual mastery is not maintained without struggle. The SubGenius must be vigilant and must hone his abnormality. He must hide the church. Otherwise, the nantessence loses its spark, and then SubGenius degenerates and dies normal. This is a death worse than any fate. When a normal dies, it exhausts all of its puny strength in a vain effort to hover near the body it squandered. The pale, shell-like entity soon is carried away by wind or other forces. Being lighter than air, the pink, although they may be bland versions of other colors, the pink soul drifts aimlessly. Although pinkster souls, also known as plugs, do tend to cluster. The plugs are gathered up by cosmic agents, usually representing Jehovah One, who has the largest franchise in this area. The plugs are sprinkled into vats. The vats have an energy source which melts the plug shells, making them bond together. As new plugs continue to collect above, the norm soul's shapes and colors blend until they resemble a lumpy stew. Ultimately, the plugs form a clear slurry which drains from the vat. This plasma can be used to form new souls, souls who have a chance to become new SubGenius. However, the plasma is also formed during sex, and the slur plus is often sold as a spaceship fuel additive. Neegies, henchmen, are known to have been styled in such a vat by agents for their master. The vats themselves are said to be relics left by the elder gods, forged for unguessed motives. Thus, normals cannot be said to have led past lives. It was just normal. I'm Pastor Bucknaked. You can write to me at Post Office Box 140026, Dallas, Texas 75214. Send $1 and I'll send you a package of wild stuff and my catalog.
Oh, yes, friends, the Devos, as I like to call those terrible boys. God, I actually had not meant to play that song, but the thing that I did have queued up was something mysterious happened to it. But that's okay, friends, because you know what? Well, no wonder this thing's on. Oh, yes. You know, because Bob's been to hell. The elder gods were jealous of Bob's slack, for they have no bodies, and thus cannot know the true squirt. And so they sent Bob to hell and stole his squirt. Now think of it. Dobbs in the Christian hell, pursued endlessly by demons, making him relearn the concept of pain, which he had forgotten in his great slackfulness, while bastard gods like Wotan usurped the sexual spiritual orgasm from which they had disconnected his astral senses. It's enough to make you want to do something about it. But like what? What are you going to do? Shoot a shotgun up at the sky or into the deepest mine shaft you can find? All the gods in the universe all joined together in a mighty legion of doom have been unable to defeat the devil. And we say, here's what we say, thank God for Satan. For it's through his success that Bob's word receives press. You see, as powerful as the devil is, he cannot defeat Bob. He cannot defeat that man, Bob. Bob has repeatedly made incredible breakouts from the underworld. By coincidence, each time as he is reincarnated into short-lived life forms, such as the mayfly, the brine shrimp, and a turkey just before Thanksgiving. At one point, it came back as a baboon's heart. Thus, he was quickly caught again by that devil and sentenced even deeper into hell with each recapture. He has become very familiar with hell's many circles and levels and trapdoors, escape hatches. And while he's been there, Bob's made a few changes. He's going to bring some measure of democracy to hell. He will, shall we say, Americanize hell. Most of the souls down there were born before there was an America. They're more than ready for blue jeans, hot cars, and radios. For in some parts of hell, there is not even rock and roll. But although you can escape from hell, especially Bob can escape from hell, there is no escape from heaven. And we're going to talk about the caves and flames of the Christian heaven. Although you can escape hell. Well, I just said that. See, I'm editing as we go along here. By the time you get to Christian heaven, said Janer Hypercleats, you'll be wishing to God you'd made it to SubGenius hell. The Christian heaven is only the next rung up the ladder of afterlives, and it's also reserved for Christians. It consists of an absence of pain and of pleasure. You see, friends, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. All the obedient souls belong to God and get eternal slavery in heaven. And everybody else burns in hell forever and ever. Now, we don't buy that. I'm sorry. Church and SubGenius, we just don't buy that. As if making you a work slave all your life wasn't bad enough, they want to keep you enslaved in the afterlife as well. They spend all their mortal lives forcing puritanical laws down everybody's throats, and then they expect us to believe that heaven's going to be any different? That once they reach heaven, then God's suddenly going to allow his little herd of sheep to run wild? You get all the joy of the fundamentalist lifestyle. With no hope of escape, not even death. Some heaven. Little wonder Lucifer got the hell out of there. Bob believes in everyone's God-forbidden right to choose for themselves the fate of their almighty soul. Dobbs is recruiting lost souls of every creed, the billions that fell between the cracks of good and evil, the neutrals who just want for once to be left alone in the afterlife. My friends, there's plenty of quality souls frying in hell just because they didn't want to follow the goose-stepping guidelines of God, lashed and tortured forever for no other reason than that they wanted to be free. And if freedom's a sin, pray that we're all sinners.
I was praying last night when an angel broke the line. She said, I'm gonna have to put you on hold for a time. I said, hold like hell, let me talk to the boss. She said, sorry, sinner, it's the boss's day off. And I realized then that the wages of sin was $2 an hour and working weekend. I was ignoring the fee who was lashed to the cross and cried, help me get this son of a bitch off. I said I would if I could. I can't, so I won't. Well, I wouldn't want you messing your hair up, so don't. And I realized then that the wages of sin was all the lumber you can carry, all the nails you can bend. The wages of sin, the reward of fear, is worrying and fretting every second of the year. If heaven is guilt, no sex and no show, then I'm not sure if I really want to go. The wages of sin, the price that you pay, is worrying and fretting every second of the day. The church and the state, your God and country kind. One gets your body, the other gets your mind. Mary Magdalene, how about a date? You've been wasting your time staying up so late. Your boyfriend's dead, the word is you're a whore. Just about then I heard a knock on the door, and I realized then that the wages of sin was a bad reputation and too many friends. The wages of sin, 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 the wages of sin.
Oh, yes, friends, the Rainmakers once again performed that little piece of music, and now we must unfortunately discuss, well, it's, one might say, the scarier part of all this. You know, the soul is the one part of us that the conspiracy hungers for the most. And when you enter Wotan's bloodstream, you have to deal with his antibodies. Go into the spirit and you must deal with spirits. And with the cannibalism of souls. Some spirits, called theocrats, vampirize off other spirits and so live, quote unquote, live forever at the expense of their victims. They obtain these victims by posing as gods and persuading the religious believers to come to them voluntarily after death, thinking that they are entering eternal bliss in heaven. And by the way, this is all from a book called War in Heaven by Kyle Griffith. And he continues to say, quote, many notorious tyrants, conquerors, evil religious leaders, black magicians, and criminals have become theocrats after death, but so have some saints or benign geniuses. Power corrupts, and the prospect of achieving immortality corrupts even more. Many people with highly developed souls whose earthly lives were lived quite ethically chose to become theocrats after death. This has been especially true for people who were religiously devout, then found out the horrible truth about their gods after death. The theocrats enslave other spirits and provide psychic energy, just as slaves or employees on earth provide physical labor. The daily activities of a fundamentalist theocratic band organized in heaven are similar to a church service as such sects hold them on earth, except that they go on perpetually. The theocrat in charge poses as the Lord God Jehovah. The subordinate theocrats pose as Christ, various angels and apostles, and so forth. God quotes the same biblical passages and preaches the same sermons as preachers in the same sect do on earth, and the congregation joins in singing the same hymns. The theocratic leaders then channel this collective psychic energy. For instance, there are dead Christians who think they're in heaven, sitting around the throne of Jehovah, eternally singing his praises, when they're really just his slaves, and possibly his dinner as well. Now you understand the real significance of Holy Communion.
Young lady, because you have never accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior, you must go to hell.
Oh, please. I don't want to go to hell. I'm only I never even had a chance to be a Christian. But I'd like to be saved. Couldn't I become a Christian now?
No, child. It is too late.
But you wouldn't send a person to hell who never had a chance, would you?
But you had an opportunity when you were 7 years old. June 2nd, 1968.
Betty, you're too young. Wait till you're older. You have plenty of time.
But you saw how my parents wouldn't let me go. It's their fault that I'm lost. It's their fault. Why wouldn't you let me go?
There were other times that I have dealt with you, but you would have none of it.
When was it that you dealt with me?
December 18th, 1974.
Betty, for as long as I've known Christ, I've tried to make him real to you. When are you going to accept him and be saved?
I don't know, Cindy. I don't want to hurt your feelings, but religion just isn't my thing. There's plenty of time. I'm just not interested right now.
Betty, one of these days you're going to stand before God, and you'll wish 1,000 times you had taken the chance to accept him, but it'll be too late.
No, child. You are lost, and there is no place found for you except the lake of fire, prepared for the devil and his angels. Take her away.
No, I'm too young. I don't want to go. Mama! Daddy! Help me!
I know.
SubGenius hell. It's a cold, cold kind of hell. Cold in here. Wish I could light this here pipe. They gave me all the frappy in the world, and it's too cold to light this pipe. Oh,